This is Brad Montgomery. Welcome to the Successful, Interesting, and Awesome podcast, where I interview people who are, wait for it, successful, interesting, and awesome. Or at least one of those three.
Ooh, even a little countdown.
All right, we are live. So all we need right now is a little music. Boom. Hey everybody, it's going to be a good episode. We're going to talk to a buddy of mine, a motivational speaker, a veteran, a rock star entertainer, a singer. Also, he's a guy who's got a really good laugh. But we're going to talk, maybe we'll talk about that some, but we're going to be talking about what? What's that again? Racism. Ooh. What? Today? Yeah, today. Mark Lindquist in just a minute. Okay, 4 minutes. Be patient. Looking good. Oh, that music is loud. Mark Lindquist, speaker, vet, interesting dude, thinker of big thoughts. Really nice guy. We're going to talk to him about racism in just a few 3.5 minutes. You can wait. I'm glad you're here. Look, everybody, I made notes. Sometimes I think if you just wave a piece of paper at people, they'll think you've prepared. Oh, it's going to be a good interview. We're going to talk about racism with a rock star motivational speaker, entertainer, big thinker, nice guy, camper. But you're going to want to hear about that, right? Me too. 2 minutes. If you are a fan of Mark Lindquist, I am, you're going to want to be here in 1:40. I am seriously looking forward to this. We're going to be talking about racism. We're going to talk about football. That makes you curious. What? We're talking football? Yeah. Stay tuned. I think I've got it set. I think I have it set. We're almost there with Mark Lindquist. There's so much technology. If you saw the buttons on my desk, your eyes would just roll back in your head. Did you notice how that song ended perfectly on time? I hope you did, because... Oh, it's still going. Dang it, just when I told you that. Hold on with me, peeps. We're live with Mark Lindquist. I just need to see if I can turn that thing. There we go. Oh, it's a good day. Have you been washing your hands? I know you have. Have you been wearing your mask? I know you have. I got my second shot. Look at that smile, people. That is a very good day. Let me tell you why today is so much fun. If you've been following this podcast, you know I've been interviewing, the name is Successful, Interesting, and Awesome. So my guests have to be at least one of those things. But to date, they've been all three of those, and today's no different. But what's kind of happened by accident is podcasts evolve, and my podcast started out as me just kind of interviewing some folks and working it out. And if you listen to the early episodes, you'll hear it. You'll say to yourself, sounds like Brad's working it out. But just recently, I've gotten past the fluffy questions, and I've started asking guests if they'll let me be open and honest and talk about things that are in the news and things that are in their heart and things that are difficult. And so to that end, we talked about race with Fatima Nash. She let me ask her what it's like to be a black woman in America this spring. And that, look it up, people. That was powerful and made my head explode in a good way. And then after that, we were talking to my buddy Willie Jolly, who is a Hall of Fame speaker, but he was generous and let me talk to him about what it's like to be a black speaker. And my head exploded a little bit on that one too, in a good way. Because you know how it is. You can read stuff in the paper and it's real. But then when you have a conversation with somebody and they say, here is my personal experience, it becomes more powerful. So I got lucky because my guest said, yes, Brad, I will let you ask those dumbass, awkward questions. You're a straight, white, 50-something-year-old in Denver, but I'll let you ask those questions. And we'll do it and have fun. So let's learn. Please welcome to your laptop, to your kitchen table, to your home office, to your couch. Maybe you're in bed. I don't care. I'm not judging. Say hi to Mark J. Lindquist. Mark is in the house.
Hey!
What? Dude, I'm glad you're here.
So
Thank
good
you for
to
saying
see
yes.
you, brother. Of course. Thanks for having me. Honored.
Well, let's get started with you because I've told them we're going to talk about race, and we are. But what starts with way before that? I want them to know who you are. I met you through your work as a motivational speaker, but
Yes.
because I know you and because I have stalked you, dude, way before then you were in front of audiences. You want to walk us through that real quick? What's your background?
I grew up in a small town in Ortonville, Minnesota. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about starting out life in an orphanage on the other side of the planet, but adopted there. And then I started singing the national anthem at the Friday night football games in Ortonville, Minnesota when I was about a junior in high school, and got to entertain for the United States Air Force in a Bob Hope USO style show. And recently I've been a motivational speaker and singer of the national anthem. Go Badgers.
Well, there's video of you singing. You're not just sort of a casual singer. You're the real deal.
Well, I'd like to think, when you stand in front of 70,000 people for the NFL and lead America in our national anthem, you can take some pride in that. So I like to, sing it loud and proud and belt that baby out.
All right, so let's talk about what that's like, because I've been in front of audiences my entire life. I've never been in front of 70,000 people. And I don't mind telling you, after seeing so many people screw up that song and get nerves and all the things that seem very human to me, that would scare the out of me. So first time, big, huge crowd. What was that like?
Well, I mean, it was the repetition of having been there before. Once I got to the big crowds that you lean on, it doesn't scare you to get up in front of a crowd of any size these days because you've done it so many times. Certainly the first time when I was a junior in high school singing an a cappella at the 50-yard line when I forgot the words.
Oh, that happened?
Yes, absolutely. And so you learn from every iteration out there in front of a live crowd. And once you get, I think I was probably 33 by the time I sang for my first NFL game. You'd just been there and done it so many times, it was like second nature. Of course, you had butterflies, but the experience you draw on.
Well, let's go back to that junior year. So this is in front of your high school.
Yes, yes, my hometown, 2,000 people. It's a town where everybody knows everybody. And of course, as we'll talk about a little later, being the only or one of the only Asian kids in town, like everybody knows you, of course. You work at the grocery store and everybody knows your family. And I'm out there at the 50-yard line, and my music teacher, choir teacher, had taught me the right way to sing the song, right? And so we had rehearsed. I went out there and I sang, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming." And then I sang that again. And then I hummed for a few bars, and then I came in at Rocket's Red Glare. So there have been some disasters, but ever since I have carried a lyric card in my pocket, in my wallet, so that I have something to lean on and I never mess it up.
So how does that work? So you're in the stadium, and what people don't know is you're holding a note card in case of emergency.
Yes.
You just look at it.
It's actually on my finger. I'll put it right there on my finger because it's on my mic hand. So I just glanced down. I made it out of packing tape and laminate paper, and so it's a .4 font, and it's got all the words. That's my insurance policy to the NFL to make sure I won't mess it up.
Well, I love that for a million reasons, but one of them is, I don't know if you know this, Mark, but I'm a magician, and magicians love sneaky things.
Yeah.
And that is a sneaky, you hid the fact that you had a crib sheet.
And to me, I've told a lot of different singers that, because our biggest fear with the national anthem, and the reason why a lot of big famous singers will never sing the national anthem, is because they don't want to mess it up like, Christina Aguilera did at the Super Bowl. It's a career ruiner, maybe. Or just nobody wants to dishonor the national anthem. And so to me, I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, and I've done it for military ceremonies all over the planet, and now for the pro sports, if I'm going to do that, I've got to build in a failsafe, because even a professional singer isn't immune to a Christina Aguilera moment,
Right. I was just having this conversation, Mark, but in a totally different context. I was talking to a magician buddy, and same thing. If you're doing a magic show, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and if you do enough magic shows, they all go wrong. And so we were talking about all the fail safes you built around the show through experience. Having it on your thumb just kills me. That is,
yeah. Another one of those things is a pitch pipe, because maybe you've seen the Carl Lewis NBA video where he started the song too high. So you build those little things in to make sure that you start on the right note, and of course the lyric card. I've looked at it many times, even on national television. You glance down and you're like, is it gleaming or is it streaming? And it helps, and nobody notices. The production managers don't notice. Even the Miami Dolphins production team applauded me for it and said, we're going to tell our other singers to do the same.
so clever. All right, so let's walk through the nerves, because one of the things you're talking about is managing nerves. Even though I don't think anyone listening to this has sung the national anthem in front of a huge crowd, but we all know what it's like to be nervous. Yeah. What does that teach you? Like, what have you learned about handling your own nerves by going in front of those high pressure situations that you can teach us?
I think it is true when people say that if you don't feel a little nervous, you probably are not in the right frame of mind, because I have phoned in a performance or two. Well, actually, I would say one, and I learned that lesson quick. Like, no, I have to focus. And so I feel like, of course, when you look out at 70,000 people, you get some butterflies. But what I do isn't everything about mindset, Brad. What I do is I put myself in the mindset of, this is my service to the country. This is the moment, the 90 seconds where we're not partisan. We don't necessarily, as a military member, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or apathetic. I'm there serving Americans, right? And that's how I look at this national anthem. It's a service-minded thing. And as soon as you flip into that mindset of you're there to serve and give and and have that spirit, all of the worries about embarrassment and messing up go away, because now it's about serving. And I guess that's always helped me.
Okay, so here's the thing. I hear you, and I'm like, yeah, Mark, yeah, I get it. Service, be in service of America. And the other part of me wants just to gag because I'm like, are you serious? You're able to think of others when you're such a personal moment, such a terrifying thing. So, and the other thing I know is I know you well enough to know you're not kidding, that you really do that.
And I think it's from the training that I received. So long story short, in 2011, I applied for a world tour. It's kind of like a USO show. And, think of a Bob Hope show, right? And think of folks like Brad Paisley or Kid Rock or Robin Williams going over to the desert and entertaining the troops. So I got the chance to do that and receive some pretty elite training. And so the hours were long and the nights were short. 124 Air Force bases all over the planet, twice to the desert, 22 countries and 38 states. Our elite military unit, of which I was the first sergeant and kind of a second in command, the training we received from the United States Air Force was elite entertainment training, if there is such a thing. And that was one of the basic tenets of our training and our mindset and what we were about to give our life, a year of our life, to do. And so that's, I don't know, yes, it does sound a little hokey, but that's what they trained me to do. So I guess it's what I use as a professional speaker and entertainer today.
Yeah, that's cool because I think I get it. And I would love to be in on that training, by the way. But
yeah, it was intense and it was great.
I think when I'm speaking for me, because I've been in entertainment my entire life. I started doing magic and comedy, and then it's been 30 years in front of audiences. And at the beginning of my career, if you would have said, "Be in service to the audience, Brad," I would have said, "I don't know what you're talking about," because I thought it was sort of confrontational, as in I need to go beat that audience. I need to win the audience. Comedians talk about, how'd you do? I killed. Very different language than, try to put yourself in their shoes and be there for them and love them. And I sort of get that now, but I think that's kind of an advanced thought. So hearing you say that's how you get through the national anthem in front of huge crowds, that feels right to me.
And maybe I can share just a quick story that might bring it home. And the reason why we were given that training is that you're over in the middle of the desert. And if you've never been to the desert, it's gray, it's brown, you don't see color for a year, there's nothing to do. And so we would go in the middle of the summer when none of the entertainment acts would want to go, when it was blazing hot, 134 degrees. And the whole mission of our organization was to serve that airman, soldier, sailor, Marine who had maybe been over there on their third or fourth or fifth deployment. Maybe it was their first Christmas away from home. And that was the story we would hear of the young man or young woman who, in all seriousness, they would come up to us afterwards and say, tonight was the night that I was going to turn my own weapon on myself.
Oh.
And that brings a whole nother level of importance to the work you do, bringing a smile to the face and entertaining troops. And so although we were jazz hands and red sequins, and yes, I was trying to be the star of the show and, be as entertaining as possible, there was a meaning behind it, because you're entertaining troops on the other side of the planet who just got back from outside the wire. So anyway, it was some of the most honorable work I could possibly imagine back in 2011.
I want that gig. Sounds like you were. All right, so I saw a video of you in front of a big band doing Sinatra tunes. You were killing it. So you got jazz chops too. What was I looking at? Was that you on a USO tour, or what was that?
That was just my own creation and concoction and dream to always lead a 17-piece Sinatra-style big band. I pulled it off in 2015 and have done a little work for clients around the country with that, and hope to revive that. You don't see big bands often enough.
No.
And so it was just a thing that I put together with some extra money that I did saved, and we sold out a couple shows. It was great.
A passion project.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's all it was.
All right, people, if you're with me, this is Mark J. Lindquist. There's more than one Mark Lindquist, but there's not one more more than one Mark J. Lindquist. At least not today on this podcast. And we are going to talk about race. I'm trying to catch you up to where he is now. So, you became the national anthem singer, national anthem guy. I didn't know that was a job, and I'm guessing you didn't either.
And it really isn't. It's a volunteer gig. They don't pay to bring in performers. It's something I had to make enough money in my business to fly myself around the country to 15 or 20 gigs a year. Because think about it, I was auditioning for the Cleveland Cavaliers, for LeBron James's Cleveland Cavaliers. It was an open call audition, 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. Anybody could show up. There's only 42 games in an NBA season that you're auditioning for, and there were 9,000 people that showed up. And so as soon as I tell them you have to pay me anything, give me a ham sandwich, whatever, they say, forget about it. We got 8,999 other people who do it for free. And so it's just, that's, when I say it's a service, it really is. It's literally a volunteer gig.
I assumed, because like with the NFL, the dollars are so huge that to get a vet pro singer to come and do this, of course there had to be money. My head exploded.
They give me tickets, which I take, and they give me field passes. And so, like, I'm wearing the Chicago Bears shirt today,
Oh, nice.
I try to bring fans of the team, who are rabid fans who would never get to stand on the field
Right.
for pregame. And so it's just a fun thing. And so, but quite honestly, when you think about the tickets they give me, and you think about the, the access and et cetera, it probably is a $20,000 a year comp package, because of the tickets. So I love sports, so it's a good deal. Win-win.
You just get more interesting all the time. So what pays the gigs for you? This is pre-COVID. What pays what pays your rent? What pays for your gas? It's all speaking. It's not the singing.
Yeah. Used to travel around, 100 gigs a year, travel 300 days a year, just like you.
Yeah, I miss that.
Yeah, right? Gosh, I miss. Why do you think I got an RV and the road was calling?
Well, I was going to ask, because this is half of our listeners are going to see a video of this, and half will just hear it. You are not clearly in your home office. You're not in a cubicle. Where are you?
No. I am in Sisseton, South Dakota, headed to my mom and dad's farm in Minnesota. I've been parking outside of Fargo, North Dakota for the past few weeks, and I've been rolling across the country, 36 states and 20,000 miles since July 1st during the pandemic. National parks, state parks, living in Flying J's and Pilot gas stations.
Well, what's that like? Because part of me thinks, oh, Mark, you are the coolest guy ever. I am so jealous. And the other part of me thinks that had to be lonely at times.
No, because I picked up an Air Force buddy of mine in Steamboat Springs. We were both single young guys, and he was on the world tour with me as a drummer. And so I picked him up, and he and I rode this whole pandemic out together. So thank goodness we had companionship. But just best friends rolling around the country.
Oh, that is pretty great. Okay, now I am really jealous. All right, let's.
Honestly, it was just what the doctor ordered. I think a lot of people have experienced some loneliness this year, and so to have a friend and a brother there with you, going through this together, I hope, or if this ever happens again, I hope people can do it like we did it together.
Yeah, that was really smart. Strategic. It kind of like strategically expanding your bubble.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so wonderful to, while everybody else around the country was kind of in this, your own bubble, to be able to be out in the state parks and the national parks and not feel like, the walls were closing in.
Right. Are you feeling like I am feeling that the spigot has not turned on, but I feel like it's turning on? Are you starting to get hints of life?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I do. And I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about, this is a tragedy this last year with the pandemic, but it was also a shared experience, right? And so maybe if we do it right, we can come out on the other side a little stronger. We'll see. And, depending on the progress that we make on the issue we're talking about today, race, maybe that has something to do with it too.
I hope so. Well, how was that for a transition? Thank you for delivering that, Mark J. Lindquist. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about this. You're Asian American. You hinted already. Your last name is Lindquist.
Yes.
You're up in the north, so you're adopted. What's the background on this?
Born in Seoul, South Korea, to two Korean birth parents, and adopted, put in an orphanage, and then adopted at the age of 8 months, brought to western Minnesota, and then raised with our family, the Lindquist family of four, on a farm in western Minnesota. And as I think about race and racism and some of the issues that our society deals with today, is my whole life has been about race. With a last name like Lindquist, with the way that I look, and obviously you know that I'm not a Swedish Norwegian kid from the prairie, and of course the small town of Ortonville, Minnesota, wonderful small town. You know, what defined everything that I did from the first memories I have to today. And I've been very fortunate to not maybe see the worst of racism in America or in the world. I lived in that community. I got to give the congratulations to the people of Ortonville that never did make me feel like I was any different. And that probably is rare. So I've always been grateful for that, for my upbringing.
Well, how old were you when you realized, oh, I'm Asian?
You know, you think back to your early memories, probably like the playground in second grade. When they'd make fun of my squinty eyes and my flat nose. But the way I look at it in hindsight is that everybody got made fun of on the second grade playground. That was the low hanging fruit for me. And so luckily it didn't turn to be hateful. I have experienced that in my life, later on in life, but the hometown never made me feel like I wasn't welcome or that I wasn't just another local kid.
It's almost hard for me to believe, Mark, that that in your small town there wasn't one person who treated you poorly. That seems amazing.
And I wouldn't maybe go that far, but as an overall upbringing, as an overall feeling, no, there was nothing but welcoming and open arms and adoration for my mother and father for choosing to adopt a kid, because Minnesota actually is very well known for adopting specifically Koreans. There's been two wonderful agencies in Minneapolis, St. Paul, that have sent young Korean babies all over the state, and so maybe it's a little bit more common, but on the newspaper of our hometown it says a town with a heart, and I guess I'm living proof that it's true. And so, I don't know. I'm fortunate. And I've been speaking about that for the last 20 some years. I remember I was 19 years old doing an interview for a book, and I told that story, that I'm an Asian kid named Lindquist from Seoul, South Korea, a complete outsider from the beginning. And that community figured it out and figured out how to accept a young kid like me who didn't look like them. And so here's my line. My line is, or my thought is, I've been teaching people my whole life that you could love someone who doesn't look like you. Maybe the next mission in life is to teach people that you can love someone who doesn't think like you.
Mm. Aw. One of the phrases that stuck out to me, though, in what you just said is, I've been teaching people my whole life. That's a lot. Like, I was never asked or assumed the responsibility. I wasn't asked to take the responsibility, nor did I take it upon myself to teach anybody anything. I was off being oblivious, where you were being a teacher, which seems unfair.
Well, teacher might not be the right word. It's probably too generous. I've been showing you just me by me being me. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they've gleaned that lesson. I haven't intentionally taught those lessons, but maybe it is something that I could do in the future.
All right. So, when did you leave home? Went to college?
Yep. Took off for college because that was the thing you were supposed to do. Got a little restless in college and dropped out after a year and went off to a program called AmeriCorps. Oh. And I think that was one of the first opportunities in my life to live in a community where they didn't look like me and didn't look like the people I grew up with. So Southeast Washington, D.C. is where our campus was in AmeriCorps. It's like a Peace Corps program.
Yep.
And so I was doing that for 2 years, living in Southeast D.C. And you remember in the 90s, D.C. was Murder City, USA, the #1 murder rate in America. I've been shot at in that community. But my lesson, Brad, was, when we talk about racism, and of course, we're probably talking about how to rid the world of racism. What I learned at 19 was that when you make friends with people who don't look like you, when you make friends with people who are in a community that is plagued by gang shootings, drug violence, etc., it changes everything. If you have the personal experience and you can go to Mrs. Sweet's house and you've done a community healing parade and bouncy house event after that shooting, your whole perspective changes, because none of them looked like me. They were all Black African Americans. And I had to immerse myself in that culture and gain friends to really have an appreciation for a life that I knew nothing about. And so my whole adult life, I've been able to look at issues of race through that lens. And really, it started with a personal experience where I made friends with people who were different than me.
Mm-hmm. Well, give me some stories. You and I are storytellers. That is our gig. It's your entire life. It sounds like it started almost dreamy, and here's a kid from Korea who just fits in perfectly, and people are very warm. But my spidey sense tells me that has not been your entire life story. So, when was the first time you realized, holy moly, that was racism and I hated it?
I think, let's go back to elementary school. Let's go back to high school days, growing up, your formative years. The way that I was able to deal with being the only different person in the room. I've been the only minority in the room most of my life. The way I was able to deal with that is I was going to take it away from you by making a joke about it before you could use it on me. And so that's maybe why I made it kind of unscathed through life, is because I showed people I didn't take myself too seriously, and I would make a joke about it. Now, I don't know if that was a healthy defense mechanism or not. In fact, later in life, I've been told that you shouldn't joke about such things, because for some, race is an exposed nerve topic. Sometimes the conversation of race hurts, and to joke about it has made some of my audiences uncomfortable to the point where they walked out.
Oh, no
And
kidding.
that was a learning lesson. Oh, yeah, for a learning lesson for me. In rural Wisconsin, ironically, for an AmeriCorps group, those are 18 to 24-year-old young people serving their country in AmeriCorps. And there happened to be 30, mostly minority, mostly Black Americans who walked out because they didn't like the fact that I had used race as a punchline. And I learned a lot that day, Brad. I listened a lot, and I still try to learn from that. And, because then you're saying, like, oh my gosh, my entire way of dealing with race my whole life, has it been wrong?
Yeah.
And it tore my heart out that because I'm just trying to get people to like me,
Well,
so
give us an example. How did you use race as a punchline? Because I think what you're saying is I use this to manage my relationships with new people. But what did you do?
The opening slide in my presentation for years was my license plate, which is from North Dakota, and it says, I'm Asian. And so my joke is I walk on stage and I say, hey, you ready to go? And they all say yes. And I flip to the slide that's my license plate, I'm Asian, and taking a selfie next to it. And I say, that's just in case you heard the last name Lindquist and you were waiting for a white guy to get up here. It's the very first thing I say. And the reason, from a comedian standpoint, the reason why I do that is because you say the elephant in the room, right? And then I also showed them I didn't take myself too seriously. And for hundreds of presentations all over the country, it played well. In that room, they walked out. And so took it out after a while, and I had a big, a crisis of confidence because of that. Because I thought, oh my gosh, have I been unintentionally offending people my whole life? And so it's, as you see, it's still something that I'm wrestling with and trying to figure out how to strike that right balance without offending people, but
Right.
also break down barriers, etc.
At the risk of sounding like a complete ignoramus, which, by the way, is not far from the truth, why is that joke offensive?
Um, I don't know if that joke specifically was offensive. More of what I heard from them was that the reference of race and making it a punchline was offensive. And I didn't fault them, and I don't think that they were wrong. And I guess my only defense when I even repeated it back to them was its intention was to break down barriers and get you to like me, which has been almost, save for that room, universally accepted in my life. And so it is for the vast, no pun intended, minority of the experiences that I've had, but it is probably the loudest experience I've had on said topic. Does that make sense?
So if it were me, and I thought I was off doing something, and then people called me racist, that would freaking hurt my feelings. I'd feel bad about myself.
Oh, I didn't sleep that night. It was very disturbing to me because you know me, Brad. Like that's not how I want to show up in the world.
Right.
And so I don't know if I've had any resolution on it. Nor, and I'm going to be honest with you, nor do I know that I'm going to change it because I guess as a professional entertainer and as a speaker, I know that it is a potential connecting point. But I do have to be very aware of these choices and be able to defend them if I continue to, do my act like I do.
We're kind of we're like this right now. I know that many straight white middle-aged guy speakers we are worried because we're so worried that we will somehow step in it and accidentally say something that either comes out horrible or is we didn't even know is horrible or what, and then we offend people. And I never want to offend anybody. And hearing that
Right.
you are dealing with the same exact issue as a minority is fascinating.
And I don't know that I have the right answer yet. It's going to take more listening. It's going to take more experience out there, giving it a shot, trying, and seeing seeing if it's still funny. I guess can we be honest like that? Like I don't know if I can say the Asian jokes anymore. I don't know.
Right.
And I want to be sensitive to it because I think race, and we're going through the trial of Derek Chauvin right now, and of course the unspeakable tragedies that have happened with race and police here in the last year that I've been awakened to. I don't know what world I live in right now and what is acceptable and what isn't. So I have, as a professional speaker and entertainer, I have some trepidation. I don't know
Yeah.
what is acceptable and or right given the enlightenment of society.
Yeah, the problem, of course, is it's a work in progress for all of us. Like what I think about race and what I believe about race today is not the same as what I understood a year ago. I've gone through a lot of, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't understand this past year. And I suspect most of our country has. Where are you on that continuum? Do you feel like you're learning stuff, or is it more like, yeah, I knew this a long time. Welcome to the party. I'm glad you're starting to get hip.
Honestly, I only hear that from, honestly, my black friends, and of which half of my best friends are African American. I do not have that level of enlightenment. I grew up, honestly, as a white kid from rural Minnesota who lives in a Korean body. And even to the point where my freshman year in college, my white, I guess Polish, maybe his background is, college roommate, we were best buddies in high school, and we were filling out the very first week freshman form that's, who are you, where are you from, what's your experience? And one of the questions was, we were both filling it out silently together. And one of the questions was, how often do you interact with someone of a different race? And we both checked almost never. And then we looked at each other as if to realize we did the same thing at the same time, and we burst out laughing, right? Because I didn't even see myself as an Asian first, right? And I guess that would be assimilation. Some people have told me of Korean descent that is an absolute horror, that I didn't appreciate my ethnicity, background, race, and dive into that. But remember, Brad, as a young kid, in being one of the only minority in my class many years, I didn't want to be the kid that stood out and had to deal with. I just wanted to be a kid, right? Do I have to be the Asian kid always?
Right.
And so I didn't want to go to the Korea Day in Minneapolis and learn how to eat with chopsticks. I wanted to go to McDonald's, right? I didn't want to be the one who gave the presentation in first, second, third, and fourth grade from the same book my mom had on Korea, because the teacher didn't know how to deal with it. They had me present as a first grader on Korea. What the hell did I know about Korea? And, small school and small classroom, they heard the same presentation from the same book year after year. Because I didn't travel to Korea till I was 30. So it just, I didn't want to be the Asian kid. I just wanted to be a kid.
All right, so you're 1 year college, AmeriCorps. When did the service come in? When did the Air Force come in?
I was 26 years old, enlisted in the United States Air Force, and for a 6-year term. They sent me to Hickam in Hawaii as an intelligence analyst for the National Security Agency. And, the military, just like AmeriCorps, is the experience where you meet people all shapes, colors, sizes, from different backgrounds, citizens and non-U.S. citizens, people from all over the place. And that really teaches you that if we're going to be a military unit as cohesive as they teach you and train you, then this race BS, we're not, we are airmen, and you learn how to deal with everybody. And then you realize that everybody is wonderful, no matter where they came from, no matter what they look like, no matter what their last name is, and you're signing up to die for them too. It gives you a different perspective.
This interview is so different from what I expected.
I hope it's better.
Well, I think you're awesome, so that's an easy one. But I was fully expecting you to say, as a kid in a small town in northern United States, I dealt with a bunch of stuff, and then definitely when I went to the military, race was a big issue, and I'm not hearing that at all.
Very isolated incidents. And I was thinking about that, Brad. I think maybe the reason why is because I start out every conversation with a big smile. That I am warm, that I am open. And I'm not saying that others aren't. I'm just saying that has been played to my advantage. That I guess I have learned how to win people over before they can judge me. Because I know that they're looking at me, I look different than everybody else in the room. But I guess I've figured out how to win people over immediately. There's 1 or 2 incidents in the military where it was really used against me. We were saluting the flag and doing our ceremony, where you raise and lower the flag at the end of the day, and the taps plays, etc. And I was in charge of the squadron, and one of the airmen didn't salute when we commanded it to be done. And so I went up to that person and asked them, and it ended up being more that they just didn't like me as a leader than anything. And then they said to me, "Why do you even care? You weren't even born here." And that was like that hurt. And it probably was pretty ignorant. And then they proceeded to say, when they didn't think that I was listening, they said, "Why does Lindquist even care?" And then they did this.
Oh.
And they did this. And then they said, "Who does he think he is, Kim Jong-un?" that was that was the toughest day of my military career, because I had signed up to serve this country just like that young white man had done. And had I not been around to hear it, I wouldn't have even known it was said. I just happened to be walking behind them and they didn't know I was there. And it was, and I was, let's see, 27 by the time that had happened. And so lived a pretty fortunate life before that, having not seen that kind of ugliness. But it sticks with me today.
How did you handle that? So this is a younger person who reported to you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
wow, that's a leadership problem. That's a personal problem. I have no idea what I would have done. Panic, I think.
I was still a young junior airman at the time in what we call technical training, which is where you gain your proficiency in the job that you do. And so I just happened to rise to be the, airman commander of the squadron. And commander is probably too big of a word, but you know what I'm saying. Leader, right? And so, of course, you run it up the chain and you talk to your supervisors and your sergeants, and they were wonderfully supportive and immediately disciplined and cracked down. But also it was an opportunity for the squadron to have a conversation about race. And I can't even remember if there was a great impact made or what the conversation was about. It was just such an emotional moment for me to think that I was serving with somebody who thought of me like that. But yeah, you run it up the chain. There's some disciplinary actions, etc., and we move on.
That
But
sucks,
I really
though.
didn't see that.
You get that happens to you, and then suddenly I'm picturing you in a diversity seminar talking about race with the offenders, and then you're having to stand there like a chump. That sounds horrible.
Yeah, well, it wasn't fun, but it probably, given what some folks in the world experience because of the way they look, that's nothing. So I keep it in that perspective.
You're kind of a half full kind of guy, aren't you?
I try to be. That's why we're motivational speakers, right?
All right, so let's talk. Let's transition to social media and BLM and Monday Night Football. So I'm not sure if I should ask you to tell the story or I should set it up. I'm thinking, and I'm really trying not to step in anything here. You and I talked offline yesterday when we were prepping for this about social media, and I admitted to you that because I use social media to fuel my business, I am pretty vanilla. I joked with you, you'd have to look to see if I have a spine. And I've done that strategically. This also, but of course I've thought about it. So when I see other people saying, nope, I need to stand up and say what I believe, and I'm going to do it now, I really admire that. And you did that in such a big splashy way. You said no to NFL and you put it on Facebook. So can you walk us through that story? Because it's better out of your mouth.
Well, the murder of George Floyd really shook me, Brad. As I think it shook a lot of people around the world. And then the response to it, and some of the, in my opinion, seemingly lacking compassion types of responses. It led me to view where we are as a country and where we're going a little bit differently. And in my own personal feeling, be it right or wrong, I associated some of the tragedies that we saw in 2020, specifically with race, specifically with Breonna Taylor, with George Floyd, with Jacob Blake, and the list goes on far too long. Specifically with those instances, I associated that closely with America and who we are as a country. That was just a personal association. And then I had to reflect on the level of pride that I have to be America's veteran who, is maybe seen on television in front of 50 million people, and what that means to me. And I made the personal decision to cancel my Monday Night Football performance with the Chicago Bears, November 11th of 2020. Maybe it was November 12th. It was around Veterans Day weekend. Simply because they used to interview me when the guys would kneel at the football games, like Colin Kaepernick, because I was the singer at the game, and that has been an issue that has been at the forefront of my mind every time that I've sung ever since Colin Kaepernick led that.
Oh, did I lose you? Hold on, I think he just checked out. I'm hoping it's a little glitch. Mark, are you with me? Hey, everybody, stick with me. It's Brad Montgomery. We're talking about race with Mark J. Lindquist. Some crazy stories, but I think we've lost him. Let me see if I can get him. Oh, he's out. I see what he's doing. He's coming back. All right, stay tuned with me. He's coming back. Here he is.
No!
There
No!
you are.
What happened? I got a phone call. I'm sorry.
Oh, is that what happened? Okay.
I tried to end it, but it ended everything. I'm so sorry. Are we back? Are we back?
Well, this is what happens when you are camping for an entire year. No, yeah. So here's where we're still with you. You're live. Hello.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
You were talking about how you had to say no to NFL.
Yeah.
And the people interviewed you because of being a singer.
And it was just a personal choice that I had made that because I sing the song with a smile on my face. I'm excited. I'm enthusiastic about it. That's maybe why they bring me in, the smiling veteran, right? And I just thought about all the things that we were dealing with as a country last year, and I didn't have a very big smile in my face or my heart or whatever.
Right.
And so I contacted the Chicago Bears, I think in August maybe, and told them I felt passionately about the leadership that John Lewis provided in the country, the leadership that was being shown around the country when it came to the Black Lives Matter movement. And so in solidarity with my black brothers and sisters, I decided that I wasn't going to sing it were I not able to kneel. And I know that's a hot button issue with a lot of people around the country. There were people at the Miami Dolphins game after they kneeled. They came up to me while I was in my uniform, and the expletives that I heard about those that were kneeling, I heard them more often than congratulations. So I get it. It's a very hot button issue, but as with everything, that's my personal choice. That's my viewpoint on the issue. And I don't know if it's right or wrong. It's just I answered the calling of my heart last year and decided to postpone any future performances. And I'm booking them again now this fall and summer. I'm in a different place now mentally. And I've wrestled with these issues. I've stood in the street and I've raised my fist. And I guess it's an evolving issue. But at the very moment, Brad, I didn't have the same level of confidence that I could stand up there and be the authentic smiling veteran during that song.
Super powerful for a couple reasons, and super scary because this is a gig you like, right? And entertainers, I'm one, we're pleasers. Our job is to go please people, and here you are taking a risk saying like, this is not going to please them. Wait till you hear what I'm about to say. That is scary.
Right. Oh, I mean, I wrestled with it all summer. They booked me right after the April schedule comes out. George Floyd was killed in May, and so I wrestled with that decision all summer and eventually had to give them enough advance notice because last year the NFL was not bringing in live performers during the game. They were pre-recording it. So were I to continue on with that gig that day, I would have had to have been flown in October and done a pre-recorded version of the anthem. yeah, it was something that took me a long time to get that decision, but after I did it, I did not regret it. I felt like it taught me integrity in the Air Force, integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. That's our core values. And so I felt like it was a move of integrity. And whether people agree with that decision or not, I was in the shoes to make it, and I made it.
Yeah.
And I feel proud said I handled it that way.
My gut tells me that statement you made, both, one of them was by saying, I prefer to not do this. But the other one was to say, you made it public. You put a Facebook post that got a lot of attention and said, here's where my heart is. Here's where my head was. This is what I'm doing. Just wanted you to know. That seems more potent because you're a vet. And it also seems more potent because you're Asian. Am I right on that?
I guess you'd have to ask the audience. Those that read it and know me. I didn't see it as my role simply because I was a vet or a minority. I just felt it was something that I couldn't go do with the same joy and feel like I was acting with integrity. So, did being Asian and being a veteran have to play into it? Yeah, probably. I don't know. But yeah, I guess that's what I have to say.
What was it like for you this football season to see what I saw? I was so struck with I'm not a football guy, but on the back of their helmet, there's a little piece of rubber right there. And so
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules were, but I saw the words like Breonna Taylor, I can't breathe. There were political things there from a league that never would have allowed that in a very short recent history. Mm-hmm. So what was it like to see those types of things and people wearing patches on their uniforms at the same year that you made such a personal statement?
I mean, I thought it was empowering, right? To give people a voice, and of course these pro athletes that, are stars already, could have done that on their own. But for a league to do that, I thought that was brave. I thought it was bold. And I supported it. Absolutely. And I think a lot of conversations I have is a lot of people have been communicating to me lately for some reason that they don't like their celebrities going political, right? And why does it have to be political? You watched a man die. Isn't that just expressing one's humanity? But also, Brad, some of my best clients are the BCA of Minnesota and the Sheriff's Association and the 911 operators. And so I listen to them too. And so I don't have a silver bullet answer on this stuff. But maybe what I'd like to see more of is that we act with compassion first, right? What if that was your son? What if that was your daughter? I just talked to a friend of mine. Like I said, half of my, best friends, of which I count, 6 or 8 in my orbit as my best friends. Yeah, half of them are black. And he just told me a story about 2 days ago. He didn't sleep much because he was having dreams and nightmares about him being stopped in a traffic stop and he couldn't talk his way out of it. And that he had the thought when he woke up, well, if it happens, I hope that my death becomes a lesson to people. And it's like, why? Why does my friend have to go through that? And so there's a lot of tough conversations that we have to have as a country. There's a lot of tough, and I applaud you for doing it. You say you're a straight white man. Not every straight white man I know is having conversations like this and trying to expand their mind. Maybe that's part of what we need to do, is have more conversations, because somehow we've landed in this place in the world where if you don't think like me, you're wrong. Well, we got to work on that, because the world is full of diverse opinions and different viewpoints. And I think that's maybe part of the problem, is we've stopped listening.
Well, I agree with you, but for the record, and this is being recorded, so I want you to listen carefully. If you don't think like me, you're wrong, Mark. I'm just saying. Just putting other people, that's a different thing. But this is Brad Montgomery.
On your podcast, you can do whatever you want, buddy.
All right. Well, what's your take on BLM? So and how will you answer feedback that says, well, all lives matter, Mark, or blue lives matter, Mark, or Asian lives matter? How do you sort through that?
I wear a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. I went to Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C., and I knelt on the ground. Because I have friends that are scared. I have friends that have been treated poorly. And I just would like to be a person that says, there's some things that suck and are wrong, and I think that's one of them. That we're treating people poorly because of the color of their skin. Aren't we past that? Aren't we way smarter than that? And so I think that sometimes the message has gotten co-opted. I think that I don't have all the answers with it, but that's where I stand, and I stood there proudly because I'm trying to be on the right side of history. And as I look at what I know about the world, all lives matter doesn't make sense in this context. We're talking about allowing black people to just simply matter. That bar is pretty low. And as we've seen in Atlanta with the Asian hate, can Asian lives just matter? It breaks my heart, Brad, that's where we're at. And yeah, I guess that's my feeling.
Would your opinion about this be different if you looked like your friends growing up in Minnesota? If you were white, and is that something you've ever thought about?
Probably, because I have friends all over the world who think a lot differently than me about it, and also, I mean, no pun intended. The world isn't black and white. The world isn't always one thing or the other. There are many of my black friends who don't support Black Lives Matter, right? And so it's like, there's you can't assign a way of thinking or a universal viewpoint, once again, just based on whether they're white, black, Asian, or etc. And so it just, I think it takes a deeper level of thought. It takes putting yourself in another's shoes. It takes befriending someone who doesn't look like you or have the same life experience as you. And I guess that's the message I'd like to advance is as I've traveled the world, people are beautiful wherever I go. Whether I'm in the mountains of Afghanistan at a bazaar buying a trinket from a local vendor, or the south side of, southeast DC, or whether I'm in northern Minnesota where I'm the only Asian that walked in the bar lately. There's great people everywhere, and can't we see that? I hope we can.
I'm just putting it out there. I think you maybe ought to consider a job as a motivational speaker. Just maybe.
Man, I would love to do those gigs.
Have you on this very, very same show, Mark, I interviewed Dr. Willie Jolly, and he was telling me stories about being turned down for work because of the color of his skin. How has racism affected you as a speaker?
I have some guilt about this, but it's been nothing but a feather in my cap and an added benefit and a bonus and a good thing. Because when I go to Speaker Bureau, what do you call them? It's been so long since we've done these things.
Showcases.
The showcase, right? When I go to the showcase, I'm usually one of two minorities there. And so I've used it as a mechanism to stand out in life. It is the way I've approached the issue of race. Is if I'm gonna stand out in the room anyway, I might as well go all the way. And so I think it has been a benefit to me, and I think my nature and the presentations that I give and the style that I have is warm and open and inviting, and so I think it has been weirdly an advantage.
Well, that is not what I expected you to say.
Well, I can say this to you because you're a good friend. Some conference planners I hear, they say they're done with pale, stale, and male.
Right.
Now, that's unfair to you. But that's what I hear, and that's what they talk about when they say, let's get the Asian guy this year, because you don't see a lot of diversity at the top of the speaking business sometimes.
I hate that you described me so well. Pale, stale, and male. Dang it. All three of them. Boom.
But in the speaking world, you have to stand out, and that's, I guess, how I have. It's the same thing that everybody's going for is a way to differentiate, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, but I get it. Where you check a couple of boxes for them. They're like, oh, good. Look at this guy.
And maybe they haven't used that as a determining factor. I guess that's just how I see it. Like, well, maybe that is a benefit.
Have you ever? So you're saying it's possible that you've gotten the benefit of the doubt because you're not pale, stale, or male. Oh, maybe I'll take one of those back. You were definitely stale.
I think at least that it's my reading of the tea leaves, I guess.
Yeah.
And the reason why they'll invite me to some of these showcases, and I get it. I'm not just being invited because I'm a minority, but I've talked to plenty of agents that have even mentioned it to me. Well, thank goodness we have some diversity here today. So what else can you read from that when they tell you that?
Right. Have you ever been turned down from a gig because you're Asian American?
If I did, they didn't tell me.
Right.
Right? I guess I wouldn't hear about that,
I get it. Well, you're such an impressive guy. Really, for so many reasons, it's fun to get to hang out with you.
We got to do it more, buddy.
So I'm switching topics here a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of my passions when I'm working with my clients is social and emotional support as it relates to success and performance and bottom line growth. By the way, if any of those sound good, bradmontgomery.com. Got a kid starting as a freshman in college next year. No pressure. But so as part of that work, I'm super interested in being encouragers and, how can we be that for other people, but also the opposite. Who does that for us? And my guess is that no one gets as far as you've gotten without having multiple people say, dude, I believe in you. You might have doubts, but I'm telling you, I see it. Does anyone come to mind when I ask you that? Who is that person? People.
I've been so fortunate in my life that there's too many to list. I'll mention a few. Coach I. He was the coach of the football team that I sang for. And he called me his good luck charm junior year because the team was just going undefeated, right? And it's like, I'm the guy who sings the national anthem. And like of course, I have nothing to do with football at all. And he was such a great mentor, even though he wasn't my teacher directly or my coach. But he believed in me. when I would ask him to write a scholarship letter or an application, he would always send me a copy with the letter, with the envelope unsealed, because he says if adults think great things about young people, they should hear them too.
Aw.
It's like, all right, I want to be like this dude. And so we're still in touch today. He's still a great coach and teacher in the state of Minnesota. That's one of them. My choir teacher, another. The Key Club advisor of our, Kiwanis Club, who got me into service, Becky Parker. All Ortonville people, right? Mom and dad. It's mom's, birthday today. I could go on. And then finally, Scott Schickler, the author of The 7 Mindsets, author out of Atlanta. He was up in Fargo. I gave a 10-minute speech for youth, and he came up to me as this big famous speaker and author like you, and told me that I maybe had what it took to, well, he didn't say maybe. I said maybe. He said I had what it took to be a professional motivational speaker. And that was the 6th month that I had gotten out of the military. And I said, yeah, okay, if you believe in me, look at you, right? And so that's when I cast the vision to be a professional motivational speaker, because somebody who was, in my eyes, more accomplished than me that I looked up to said I could.
Yeah, what's fun is just watching you visually, you kind of lit up when you were naming that coach,
Yeah.
right? And then you're the choir teacher. You felt it.
I wouldn't be who I am or where I am without the young or early belief of community members in the town of Ortonville. How lucky, to be a young kid, to have some people like that in your life. I hope that every young kid has that. It was the thing that set me on the path to success, because don't you know that how far someone can go if you just got someone to believe in you?
What a
So I guess
strong.
I'm like living proof of that.
It almost sounds cliche when you say that. I wouldn't be who I am today, but I know that you mean it, and it's just such a crazy strong sentence. These, I think you named 4 adults, shaped you with just words.
Just words, man. Like, I wouldn't have sung the national anthem were it not for Coach I to give me the chance to. I wouldn't have learned to sing it were it not for my choir teacher, Mr. Goddard. I wouldn't have gotten involved in service and even served in the military were it not for that high school experience at Becky Parker. I wouldn't be a motivational speaker. So look at all the things that I am today, right? You can trace it back to those people. And I try to, I've dedicated books to them. I call them and tell them. I know that they know that they've had an impact in my life.
Oh, good on you. I love that. I love that you've been in touch with them and that they know how powerful they were to you.
But it was Coach I's example with that letter. That was because I got a lot of scholarships and recommendations written for me where the letter was sealed, because they got to sign it across
Right.
the thing or something, right? And I never got to hear what that teacher, mentor, coach said. But Coach I went the whole different way. And that's a great lesson. I've been doing that ever since.
It is such an interesting thing, that institutionalizing of the secret. Here's a compliment, but it's secret.
Right?
And I do understand it.
Right.
In case Mark Lindquist, the little punk, is a jerk, you want to have some protection so they can be honest.
Right.
But also, how many people are writing those letters and saying, please do not accept this candidate, he's horrible?
I mean, if you got them to write the letter, I hope not, right?
What,
Coach,
are you plugging anything? We need to send them to your website for sure. Is there anything you want these people to know?
go to bradmontgomery.com.
Darn right. Hey, everybody, and I mean this from the heart. If you're thinking about booking me, I want you instead to consider Mark Lindquist and book me instead. I don't care if he's talented.
Thanks for the consideration, buddy.
I don't care how talented he is. I don't care how charming he is. I don't care that your audience would love him.
That is priceless. It's like my business manager always says, at the end of a conversation, he says, "Always good to see me."
Well, tell me a little bit. You're running around in your RV, connecting to the earth, and your buddy. Are you doing virtual out of your RV? Are you passing on virtual, waiting for live?
I largely passed this year, and didn't get the lead flow nearly what was when we lived without COVID. But it's coming back now, and I've done done a few of the virtual presentations, and now I've got a studio that I book for the future virtual presentations, and really just excited to get back and make an impact with people. It's like I can't wait to get back to my first live event. Oh my goodness, that place is going to be on fire that day. And that's probably coming back, midsummer-ish for my calendar.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Dang it, this is fun. I'm so grateful for you to take so much time out of your life for me and for us. But also, it feels awkward as a white guy to look at people who, Asian American, Black American, African American, hyphen American, and say, "Can you talk to me about race?" And you've made me feel safe, and I hope I made you feel okay about it.
I appreciate you asking, and once again, I or anybody, I don't think has all of the answers on these topics. It just takes conversations like this, and maybe we'll talk offline, because I think even as we've tried to articulate some of these things, I've maybe kind of learned some things about, all right, I've got to think about this more. I've got to dedicate some thought to these issues, because I'm not well versed necessarily in talking about these topics in a intelligent way. I've gotten a lot smarter this year, but I think it's hats off to you, my friend.
Wow, that was. First of all, if you're listening to this, he just took his hat off. Second, that was seriously corny. Wow, that was the bar has dropped.
Uncle Mark has got some good dad jokes.
All right, well, my brother, we are at my favorite question. It always comes last. I ask every guest, and I'm going to ask you, Mark J. Lindquist, veteran, singer, national anthem, awesome person, student of Coach G. Is that his name, Coach G? Coach G?
Coach I.
Coach I. Coach I. What in 2021, in April, gives you hope?
Gosh, I should have had an answer for this because you prepped me. Hope. I think it's kind of what I was saying before, is that after traveling around the world and performing for nearly 5 million people, 35 some countries in all 50 states, been traveling for 25 years, I've got a lot of evidence that wherever you go, you can make a friend. Like literally in the hills of Afghanistan, outside of Yokota Air Force Base in Japan, right? All over this country. If you open your heart to people, they'll open it back 99 times out of 100. And I think the world that we're living in today, if we're honest, it could be viewed as pretty darn ugly. Some rough issues we're dealing with in society. But what I remember is every room I've ever been in my whole life, I've usually walked out with at least one friend that I didn't have before. I don't think that the fundamental nature of humans has changed in the last 10 to 18 months. I think people are still good. And I guess that's the hope that I'm holding on to.
If you open your heart to others, there's a pretty good chance they'll open it back to you.
Boy, that sounded wise.
That was right out of your mouth, dude. That's like,
yeah,
it kind of makes me, it's kind of a little tearjerker, and it kind of makes me go like, oh, this guy is
kind of an eye roller too.
What a little. That's the thing with, I think, motivational speakers is, at least the good ones, actually believe in what they're talking about. And I know you believe in what you talk about. But it does sound often to our largely cynical audiences like a bunch of bull.
Mhm.
And so I think part of our job is to communicate like this might sound sappy to you and you don't hear this language much, but I believe it. And I think that you're the poster child of that. We believe you.
Awesome. That's makes me feel good, because I don't think anybody would have listened or maybe enjoyed themselves in audiences over the years, or this career wouldn't have happened if I was somehow disingenuous about it. And that's why I think some of the people in this industry, they rise because you believe them.
Right. Well, I think the opposite is true. Every year we see some entry level speakers come in and they are just shoveling a pile of poop and the audience knows it and they don't
Yes,
last.
people's BS meters are great these days.
Yeah.
So
All right, everybody. It's markjlindquist.com. Now you know what I know. He's a rock star. Hang with me, Mark, just for a little bit. Everybody, take care. Wash your hands. Talk to you soon, I
have
hope.
a great day. Thanks, Brad.